Welcome back to Yes Brainer. How far would you go if an authority figure ordered you to inflict pain on another person? It's a chilling question, one that most of us would answer with unwavering confidence. Not very far. We'd like to believe we are autonomous beings, guided by our own moral compass. Yet, a series of experiments conducted by Stanley Milgram in the early 1960s revealed a disturbing truth. Ordinary individuals, under the influence of perceived authority, are capable of acts that directly contradict their conscience. The Milgram Experiment showed that the potential for blind obedience lay dormant within us all. The findings were shocking, even to Milgram himself. He had set out to understand the atrocities committed during the Holocaust, hoping to find some cultural or societal explanation for the widespread compliance with Nazi orders. What he discovered was far more unsettling. The potential for blind obedience lay dormant within us all. Stanley Milgram, a young social psychologist at Yale University, was haunted by the horrors of the Holocaust. He was driven by a burning question: how could so many people participate in such unimaginable acts of cruelty? Was it something unique to German culture? Or was there a darker, more universal truth about human nature at play? Milgram designed his now infamous experiment to explore the limits of obedience to authority. His hypothesis was simple. Under the right circumstances, anyone, regardless of background or disposition, was capable of inflicting harm on another human being. Imagine yourself in 1961, arriving at a prestigious Yale laboratory to participate in a study on learning and memory.
You are met by a stern experimenter in a lab coat and introduced to another participant, a mild-mannered man named Mr. Wallace.
You draw straws to determine your roles. You are the teacher and Mr. Wallace is the learner.
You are led to a separate room and seated in front of a shock generator with switches labeled with increasing voltage levels, from 15 to 450 volts.
The experimenter explains that your task is to test Mr. Wallace's memory by delivering electric shocks for each incorrect answer, increasing the voltage with each mistake.
Unbeknownst to you, Mr. Wallace is a Confederate, and the shocks are not real.
He is strapped to a chair in the adjacent room, and with each supposed shock, he lets out increasingly distressed cries, eventually pleading for the experiment to stop.
The experimenter, however, urges you to continue, insisting that the experiment requires that you continue.
Over 65% of participants delivered the maximum shock of 450 volts, despite their own visible distress and moral objections. The Milgram experiment sent shockwaves through the scientific community, challenging long-held assumptions about human nature. The findings revealed that ordinary people, when placed in a hierarchical structure with a perceived authority figure, are remarkably susceptible to following orders, even when those orders conflict with their own moral compass. Several factors contribute to this phenomenon. The perceived legitimacy of the authority figure, the physical presence of the experimenter, and the incremental nature of the shocks all played a role in increasing compliance. Participants often justified their actions by shifting responsibility to the experimenter, claiming they were simply following orders. This diffusion of responsibility allowed them to distance themselves from the moral implications of their actions. The Milgram experiment provides a chilling reminder of the potential for ordinary people to commit extraordinary acts under the influence of authority, highlighting the importance of ethical vigilance in all spheres of life. While this obedience can be beneficial in many contexts, it also makes us vulnerable to manipulation and abuse of power. The Milgram experiment, while groundbreaking in its insights, ignited a firestorm of ethical debate that continues to this day.
Critics argued that the experiment inflicted significant psychological distress on the participants, many of whom left the lab visibly shaken and questioning their own moral compass.
The controversy surrounding Milgram's methods led to a significant overhaul of ethical guidelines for research involving human subjects. The principle of informed consent, now a cornerstone of ethical research, was largely absent from Milgram's experiment.
Participants were not fully informed of the true nature of the study, nor were they made aware of their right to withdraw at any time without penalty.
In the wake of the Milgram experiment, institutional review boards, IRBs, were established to scrutinize research proposals and ensure the well-being of human participants. The lessons learned from Milgram's controversial methods have led to more rigorous ethical standards, ensuring the protection of human participants and fostering a more responsible approach to scientific inquiry. Despite the ethical controversy, the Milgram experiment remains one of the most influential studies in the history of psychology. Its findings have reverberated through the decades, shaping our understanding of obedience, conformity, and the power of situational forces in shaping human behavior. Milgram's work has found disturbing echoes in real-world events, from the My Lai massacre during the Vietnam War to the Abu Ghraib prison scandal. In each case, seemingly ordinary individuals, under the influence of authority, committed acts of brutality that they would have likely deemed unthinkable under normal circumstances. The Milgram experiment serves as a stark reminder that the potential for blind obedience lies dormant within us all. It forces us to confront the uncomfortable reality that under the right circumstances, any one of us is capable of acts that contradict our moral compass. The Milgram experiment, though conducted over half a century ago, remains eerily relevant in today's world. From the boardrooms of corporations to the echo chambers of social media, we are constantly bombarded with messages designed to influence our thoughts and behaviors. The rise of social media has created new avenues for the dissemination of information, both accurate and misleading. Influencers and algorithms shape our perceptions, often without our conscious awareness. The Milgram experiment teaches us that obedience to authority is not simply a relic of the past, but a persistent feature of human behavior. We are all susceptible to the influence of authority figures, both real and perceived. By understanding the psychological mechanisms of obedience, we can become more discerning consumers of information, more critical thinkers, and ultimately, more responsible citizens.